So I'm about done repairing the wiring harness on this car. And since I had to splice about 10 wires, I used nothing but these solder seal connectors, and these guys made my life super easy. So I'm gonna go over them with you today. Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? Yeah, that's right. These solder seal connectors, or as some call them, solderless connectors, can come in real handy under the right circumstances. So today I'm gonna tell you how they work, how to install one of these, what are their pros and cons, and where you may or may not want to install them. Alright, so when you get a solder seal connector kit, you get a package like this. Links to this particular one in the description if you're interested. But basically these are color-coded according to the wire gauges. So as you can see, for example, this yellow one is for 12 and 10 gauge wire. These blue ones are for 16 and 12. Red ones are for 22 and 18. And these tiny white ones are for 26 and 24 gauge wire. And the connectors themselves are made up of this clear shrink tubing that has a 3:1 shrink ratio, this low temperature melting point solder ring in the middle, and then these two colored strips that will provide adhesion and stick to the sleeve of the wire, providing a watertight seal around your connection. All right, now let me show you how you install one of these. And this is gonna be the way I do it. I have my reasoning behind doing it this way. There's gonna be slight variations as to how to put these wires together. And I'll show you some other ways and also give you my reasoning, and then you can make up your own mind. So first, you wanna grab the two wires and cut no more than ½ an inch if you're going to be doing it my way from each side. And then you grab the corresponding solder seal connector. These are 14 gauge wires, so we grab this blue one and we slide it over it halfway, making sure that this blue strip is over the wire sleeve and not the bare copper. And then we grab the other one and slide it through and get them to mesh right down the middle, and I push this other one also all the way through to make sure, again, the wire sleeve is right underneath this blue strip. And then I'm going to install these on this stand, but you obviously don't have to do this. In fact, if you're doing this on the car, you don't need a stand, nor do you need a whole lot of room to pull this off. And that's one of the benefits of using these guys. All right, next it's time to heat up this joint. And for that, you're going to need a heat gun. However, this little puny one from Amazon is not going to work with these bigger blue ones, and most definitely with these yellow ones that are for 12 and 10 gauge wire, because these have a bigger solder ring in the middle. It's going to require more heat to melt. So yeah, for those, I'm going to use this bigger, more heavy-duty heat gun. This one has adjustable temperatures, and you can set this from 100 to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. And I found that setting this to about 430, 440 degrees Fahrenheit will do the trick on these bigger solder seal connectors. All right, so let's get you guys the money shot. So first, you want to start off in the middle and concentrate on this solder ring. And once that melts, you can move to the outer sides of the solder seal connection. And this is not going to take long. I would say, well, we're going to time this on camera, but I would say about 15 seconds or so. There, you can see it melts right up top, and I'm going to just give it a little bit more. And now we're going to move to the sides and get the sides, get the adhesive strips, make sure they stick to the wire. And then we're going to twist the wire around a little bit, get the back side as well. Now it's very important to let this sit and cool down for about a minute. We don't want to be prying on this, because when we apply heat, this shrink tubing is going to be pliable. So if you start pulling on this, you're going to loosen that connection with it, especially if you're going to be doing it this way. All right, so while this is cooling down, let me show you the other way you can install these connectors. So again, you grab the two wires and you cut the two ends. You can cut them a little bit longer than ½ an inch, but definitely no longer than 3/4 of an inch. And then you grab the corresponding connector, and if you pay attention, one end of these connectors is bigger than the other end. So here's the bigger one, bigger end on this side. And you want to grab the smaller end and slide it over one of the wires like this, and you want to slide it all the way through. And then you want to fan out the wire strands a little bit on both ends. And then there's also two variations of doing it this way as well. One way is to mesh these wires halfway through and then start twisting them. The other way is to simply get them nice and tight and then put them halfway and then start twisting them like this. And you want to twist these nice and tight. Either way you do it, you'll be faced with something that looks something like this. And then you want to slide over your connector over these, centering that ring right in the middle, making sure the two blue strips again are on the sleeves of the wire, not the bare copper. And then you heat it up and that's it. Now, as far as why I don't really like this method is because when you twist these wires over one another, if these are my fingers, my dirty fingers, where the wire strands, and you're twisting them over, your contact is just between the bottom end of one set over the other way, over the other set, and that's where the soldering is. It doesn't matter, the rest of it is kind of connected to one another. But if you do it this way, you mesh them together like this, you get a much better contact surface between the two sets of wires. Now, the benefit of doing it this way is that after you apply heat, and this is pliable, you cannot pull this apart as easily. But if you do it my way, after you apply heat and this shrink tubing is pliable, if you're not careful, you can pull it apart and have a loose connection or poor connection in there. All right, so this guy has cooled down. Let's get this out of the way and get you guys a closer look. So here, as I twist this around, you can see where the solder has melted and has made a connection with the bare copper wires. Again, that ring is not going to completely go away. It's just going to melt and kind of flow all around the copper wires. All right, now let's cut this down the middle and show you if it has made any penetration or not. All right, so this is the best close-up I can get of these wires, and as you can see, there is some penetration down the middle, but it's not, it's not a full-on penetration as if you were to do it with a soldering iron and some solder the old-fashioned way. But hey, there is some penetration. There's definitely penetration on the outer ring or the outer strands. All right, so let's talk about the pros and cons of these connectors. Starters, as you just saw, they're super convenient. You can be in and out under 2 minutes. You strip the wires, slide the connector on, melt it with the heat gun or a torch or a small torch or even a lighter if you're really handy and careful, and you're in and out under 2 minutes. Whereas if you were to do it with the soldering iron, you'll be sitting in there with the soldering iron on the bottom of the bare copper wires, heating it up to a point where you can melt the solder from up top, have that solder penetrate all the way through, giving you that good connection that you want. But if you're going to be doing a bunch of them like I was, it's going to take you a long time. All right, so let's say where do you want to use these instead of breaking out the soldering iron? And definitely you want to forget about the crimping connectors when you get access to these. And the answer is you can use them anywhere where it doesn't require a whole lot of amps flowing through that wire, and which is going to be a lot of places. All the sensors on your car, let's say your oxygen sensor, for example. This oxygen sensor hardly carries any amps. It's just a voltage signal that goes back to your engine's control module. Same goes for your coolant temperature sensor, your mass airflow sensor. All the other sensors, they hardly carry any current. Of course, these guys carry a bit more current than the oxygen sensor, but still, the current that flows through these guys is minimal. But even I wouldn't hesitate using these on a more higher current circuit, like these power window circuits that I use them on, because these power windows, you only use them for 5 seconds, 10 seconds to go up, down. It doesn't matter. It's not like 10 amps is running through them constantly. So yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to use these on any of those circuits if done correctly, just like we did right now. Now I might break out the soldering iron if I had to fix 1 or 2 wires, especially if they were going to something like the fuel pump or any other component that had always currents flowing through it whenever the car was running. But there's one more con, in my opinion, for these connectors that you really need to pay attention to. And that is this shrink tubing, besides the 2 areas where the adhesive is applied, is not adhesive lined on the inside like a regular shrink tubing is. So here, if we were to heat up this shrink tubing around this wire, here you can actually see the adhesive from the shrink tubing ooze out around the wire sleeve. So in my opinion, the moisture or water resistance of these connections is on the poor side. So yeah, if I were to use these somewhere where it's going to be exposed to moisture and water, like an oxygen sensor wire or an ABS sensor wire, I would still use them, but then after I install them, I would also install over them some shrink tubing to give that the moisture proofing that you need in those locations. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification. Give this video a thumbs up. And in the meantime, check out these videos on this side of the screen. Also other videos in the suggestion box, links below in the description box as well. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.